The smell of paint was everywhere. Sharp, clean, like we were trying to scrub the past right off the walls. I had a brush in one hand, a rag in the other, and Ethan's voice trailing in from the hallway, muttering about a stuck drawer. This renovation, it was supposed to bring us closer. A reset. We joked about it over wine months ago, dreaming of new colors, a new headboard, maybe even new energy between us. But something already felt uneven, like the floor beneath me wasn't quite level anymore. I was cleaning out the bedroom closet when I noticed the edge of something wedged deep behind the cabinet lining. It looked like an old receipt at first, yellowed, brittle, probably trash. But when I pulled it free, unfolded it gently, everything in me paused. The handwriting wasn't mine. The words didn't belong here. I miss you every night. She'll never know what we had behind those walls. My fingers went numb before I even finished reading. It was signed with a name I didn't recognize. But that wasn't the part that cut me open. The part that shattered the air was knowing. It happened here. In our house. In the room where I dreamed. Cooked. Slept. Cried. I stood there, letter in hand, the walls suddenly feeling closer than they had a minute ago. All the laughter we'd painted over, the carpet we ripped up, the storage we cleared out. None of it had prepared me for this. It was like the house itself had been waiting, silently, to tell me. And now that it had, I couldn't unknow it. I couldn't unfeel it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just folded the letter again and tucked it inside my pocket like a splinter I didn't want to pull out. I kept painting, kept sanding, kept pretending. Ethan didn't notice a thing. He was fussing over the light switches, asking if I liked brushed nickel or matte black, like any of it mattered. I nodded, smiled even, but inside, I was somewhere else entirely. I started replaying years in reverse. Birthdays, holidays, quiet mornings with coffee in this very room. I searched them all for signs I had missed. A glance that lingered too long. A text he answered too fast. A laugh that wasn't meant for me. They were all there now, scattered in the corners like dust. And that name, the one at the bottom of the letter, it echoed. Not loudly, but enough to sting. I whispered it once, just to feel how it sat on my tongue. Strange. Foreign. And yet, she had once stood here, hadn't she? With him. Behind these same walls. Touching what I thought was only mine. I felt violated by memories I hadn't even lived. Every creak in the floorboard became a whisper I couldn't quite translate. But I stayed silent. Not because I forgave him, but because I needed to understand the full shape of the lie. That night, when Ethan fell asleep beside me, snoring softly like he had nothing to hide, I lay awake tracing the ceiling with my eyes. The ceiling we'd just repainted together. Good as new, he'd said earlier. But I knew better now. Nothing here was new. Not really. I had cleaned every surface, dusted every shelf, but the rot wasn't in the wood. It was in the trust. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew this. If he had hidden pieces of himself in these walls, then maybe I could start hiding a few pieces of my own. The next morning, I made coffee just like I always did. Same mug, same spoon clinking gently against ceramic. Ethan came into the kitchen, kissed the top of my head, and joked about how sore his back was from crouching inside the linen closet. I smiled. Told him we were almost done. Almost. He didn't see my hands trembling slightly as I stirred the sugar. Didn't notice how long I stared at the steam rising, like it could show me what to do next. But I was already working on something, quietly, internally. A reconstruction of my own. Later that day, while he was on another quick errand, I pulled the letter from my sock drawer where I'd hidden it. I held it up to the light, studied every loop of her handwriting. There was something intimate about it, almost cruel, like she knew I'd find it someday. Or maybe she never thought I would. Either way, it was careless. And Ethan. He was counting on time to bury it. But time had turned, hadn't it? And I was no longer the woman who overlooked things. I was peeling back more than paint now. I was scraping at layers I hadn't dared to touch before. I didn't cry. Not even when I found her name in an old email chain buried in his archived folders. A former colleague he hadn't spoken to in years, or so he claimed. Her name sat there, quiet and unassuming, but I could feel it pulsing. My fingers hovered over the mouse as I traced the lie, breadcrumb by breadcrumb. Every detail I found was another chip in the foundation. And even as we polished floors and replaced fixtures, I knew this house was still holding secrets. But soon I'd start building something of my own inside it, and he'd never see it coming. I didn't say a word. Not to Ethan. Not to anyone. There was a strange power in the silence, like keeping the secret gave me the upper hand for the first time in years. He kept moving through our home with the same practiced ease, asking about curtain rods and grout colors, completely unaware that I was studying him like a stranger. Every smile, every offhanded excuse about work, every quick exit for errands, I watched it all. Not like a wife anymore, but like someone gathering evidence. And believe me, the evidence was starting to stack. There was a shift in him, subtle, but undeniable. The way he looked at his phone and tilted it slightly away. The tone in his voice when he answered certain calls. Lighter, careful, and the timing. Always just before dinner or right after I went upstairs. He thought he was being slick, but I saw it. I saw all of it. The same patterns that must have existed back then, when that other woman was sneaking into my life without me knowing. But this time, I wasn't in the dark. This time, I had the blueprint. Instead of confronting him, I leaned into the renovation. I picked finishes he'd barely glance at and let him think I needed his approval. I measured twice, drilled holes myself, and plastered a smile on my face when he told people how we had done it all. But inside, something was changing. I was rebuilding, not just the house, but myself, brick by brick, word by unspoken word. He kept telling me how beautiful everything was turning out, completely unaware that he was standing in the middle of a setup. And when I looked at him, I didn't see a husband anymore. I saw the man I was preparing to dismantle. Some nights, I'd sit on the floor of the guest room, the one we hadn't touched yet, with the letter spread out in front of me like a crime scene photo. I traced every loop of her script with my finger, whispering her words back to myself like an incantation. She'll never know. But I did know. And the more I let that sink in, the clearer everything became. This wasn't just betrayal. This was intrusion. Violation. She hadn't just taken my husband. She'd taken space in my home. And now I was taking it back. I started digging through old boxes we'd stored in the garage, not looking for memories exactly, looking for evidence. And sure enough, it didn't take long. A receipt for a boutique hotel 2 hours away. Bank withdrawals that didn't match up with any trips I remembered. And that same name again, hidden in an old email filter I hadn't touched in years. Piece by piece, I was unearthing the affair like an archaeologist of my own life. He had no idea I was excavating the past while he worried about tile samples. The strange thing was, the more I found, the calmer I became. It was like I needed confirmation, and now that I had it, I could move forward. Not with him, but with a plan. Something started forming in my mind. Something steady. Something deliberate. If he could build lies into the walls of our home, then I could build something too. But mine would be real. Mine would be quiet. And when it came time to show it, he wouldn't even recognize the woman holding the hammer. Ethan started working later again, or so he said. Quick meeting, client call, traffic was awful. I'd nod, say, okay, and keep folding laundry or scrolling through backsplash ideas on my tablet. But inside, I was watching the clock. I tracked the gaps in his stories the way a builder studies blueprints. Every delay, every excuse. They all fit into the framework I was quietly assembling. He thought I was still the same woman he lied to years ago, passive, forgiving, maybe even a little naive. But I wasn't, not anymore. I even started keeping a journal, not for therapy, for precision, times, names, dates, where he said he was, what actually lined up. I wasn't just preparing to leave, I was preparing to be believed, to build something unshakable. I wanted to make sure that when I acted, there'd be no questions left. And maybe part of me wanted him to feel what it was like to be outsmarted by someone who once trusted him with everything, to be the one caught off guard, because that's what betrayal does. It doesn't just break your heart, it sharpens your mind. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't flinch. That woman looking back? She wasn't broken, she wasn't desperate. She was waiting, steady, calculating, resilient. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't about saving a marriage. This was about reclaiming a space. My home, my body, my story. And if Ethan thought the worst was behind us, the old fights, the cold silences, then he had no idea what was being built right under his nose. I started small. A suggestion here, a casual comment there. Maybe we should get someone in to help with the closet shelves, I said one evening, swirling a spoon through my tea like it was just another thought. Ethan barely looked up from his phone. Sure, whatever you think. That was all I needed. The contractor I chose wasn't just skilled, he was someone I trusted, someone who understood discretion. I told him I wanted a special compartment installed in the new closet. Hidden storage, I said with a smile. He didn't ask questions. Good men rarely do. While Ethan was out, supposedly buying paint, I gave the contractor clear instructions. Behind the shelf, seamless, concealed. Just big enough for a few documents, and I filled it carefully. The letter, of course, unfolded and still stained with old grief. Then came the rest. Printouts of hotel invoices, screenshots of text threads I'd recovered from an old backup, even a few unexplained bank withdrawals. Evidence, not drama. No tears, no accusations. Just the truth, stacked neatly like files in a case he didn't even know was open. I remember standing there after the contractor left, staring at the finished shelf. It looked ordinary, clean, like every other shelf in every other home. But behind it? There was a story. My story. One I'd been forced to carry in silence, until now. I ran my fingers along the edge, feeling the smooth grain of new wood. It almost felt sacred. Like I'd built something sacred out of something rotten. Ethan walked in minutes later with a bag of takeout, smiling like the world was still intact. I smiled too, and asked if we should invite people over to see the finished work. He liked the idea instantly. A party, a house full of admiration, people marveling at what we'd created together. I could see it light up something in him, that hunger for validation. It made things easier. I let him pick the date, helped him draft the guest list, even suggested we cater from that Italian place his sister loved. All the while, I was rehearsing. Not what I'd say, that would come in time, but how I'd hold myself. Calm, unshaken. I wanted the truth to feel like a mirror held up to his face, one he couldn't look away from. In the days leading up to the party, I played the part so well I almost believed it. I laughed at his jokes, touched his arm when he passed by, even kissed his cheek goodnight. It was like acting in a play no one else knew had a final scene already written. But when he left for those mysterious calls or last-minute errands, I'd return to that closet. Just stand there, hand pressed to the hidden panel. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about clarity, about setting the stage in a way that couldn't be undone, denied, or rewritten. I even left a note in the compartment. Not addressed to him, not signed, just a simple sentence written in my own hand. If you're reading this, then the walls finally spoke. It felt right, like I was giving the house a voice after all it had held in silence. Ethan, meanwhile, was too busy choosing wine pairings and playlist tracks to notice the weight shifting beneath his feet. Let him plan. Let him preen. Because when the night came, the truth wouldn't just fall into the room. It would open like a door he never saw coming. The day of the party arrived crisp and golden, the kind of late afternoon light that makes everything look soft and innocent. I lit candles, fluffed pillows, straightened napkins with military precision. Every detail was curated to whisper home, warmth, welcome. Ethan moved through the space like a host in his element, charming and confident, not realizing he was about to become the main act in a story he didn't even know was being told. Guests began trickling in, family, neighbors, friends we hadn't seen in ages. Laughter floated through the air like perfume. But underneath it, I felt steel. I wore a dress he hadn't seen before, something elegant but understated. Something that let me feel grounded, untouchable. I greeted everyone with grace, offered wine and compliments, smiled as they gushed about the renovations. "It looks amazing," they said. "You two really outdid yourselves." I thanked them. I meant it. Not because of what we'd built together, but because of what I'd hidden inside it. There was something poetic about it, really. A housewarming built on ruins. A celebration balanced on a truth no one had seen. Yet. As the evening rolled on, I felt the moment rising, like a tide under the floorboards. Not yet, I told myself. Let the music play, let the laughter echo one more time. This was the final layer. Not drywall, not paint, but performance. And when it peeled away, everything would be exposed. Ethan clinked his glass to get everyone's attention, starting to thank them for coming. I stepped forward before he could finish, laying a gentle hand on his arm. "Actually," I said, turning to the room with a calm smile, "I'd love to say a few words, too." The room quieted the way only a gathering full of polite people can. Wine glasses paused midair, soft chuckles trailing off, everyone turning their attention toward me. I smiled, not wide, not stiff, just enough to let them know I was grateful. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, voice steady, warm, practiced like a host, but beating with something far deeper underneath. This house has meant a lot to us. It's seen birthdays, holidays, midnight arguments, and Sunday pancakes. It's held so much, and recently, it revealed something too. I felt Ethan stiffen beside me, not visibly, not yet. But I knew him. I could feel the shift in the air between us. "We found something during the renovation," I continued, turning slightly toward the bedroom doorway. "Behind a wall, tucked away in the back of the closet." My heels clicked softly on the hardwood as I walked down the hall. The room followed me with their eyes. Ethan stayed frozen, probably still trying to guess where I was going. My fingers curled gently around the closet handle. One breath, and I opened it. There it was. Neat. Simple. A small envelope resting exactly where I'd placed it. I reached for it slowly, deliberately, and turned back to the group now crowded in the hallway entrance. "Sometimes," I said softly, holding it up, "we think we know everything inside our home. Every corner, every creak. But some things are buried, quiet, until they're not." I unfolded the letter in front of them. My hands didn't shake, my voice didn't crack, and then I read it aloud, every word. "I miss you every night. She'll never know what we had behind those walls." The room went completely still. Not a cough, not a whisper. Just the quiet hum of disbelief pressing against the walls. I let the silence sit, let the weight of the words linger in the air like smoke after a fire. Ethan's face had drained of all color. He didn't move. His eyes darted toward me, then to the paper in my hands, then to the people behind me. His lips parted, maybe to deny, maybe to run. But I didn't give him the chance. I simply met his gaze, steady and unflinching. He knew exactly what this was. Someone gasped. I think it was his sister. A friend in the back cleared their throat, awkward and unsure. I stepped forward just a little, folding the letter again, returning it gently to the envelope. That was behind the wall, I said calmly, hidden like it was never meant to be found. But this house, it tells the truth. Eventually. The closet stood open behind me, like a wound that had finally been uncovered. I could feel the heat of a dozen eyes on Ethan now. Not mine. Theirs. He looked small, almost childlike. He still hadn't said a word. I turned back to our guests, my guests now, and smiled softly. You know, it's funny. We spent months repainting, fixing cracks, sanding the floors, making everything look brand new. And in the process, this house gave me a gift I never expected. I paused, not for effect, but because I felt it. The ending rising in my throat like truth, finally given breath. Now that the house is clean, I glanced once more at Ethan, then away. I think it's time I do the same with my life. No one applauded. No one dared. The moment held its breath, heavy and sharp. Ethan's mouth finally moved, a whisper of my name barely audible, but I didn't respond. I wasn't performing for him. I wasn't seeking apology or explanation. I was closing a chapter, in front of witnesses. The kind of closure that doesn't ask permission. I handed the envelope to his sister. Not as proof, but as inheritance. Let her see what her perfect brother had built into my home while everyone else admired the crown molding. Someone quietly backed out of the room. Another pretended to check their phone. People began to scatter, murmuring excuses about early mornings and traffic. The wine glasses were still half full, the music still humming faintly in the background. But the celebration had ended the moment I said her words aloud. Ethan stood there, his hands open at his sides, as if begging the room, or me, for something to hold on to. But I wasn't there to offer lifelines anymore. I was done painting over cracks. I walked past him without touching his arm, without looking back. Just a slight nod to the contractor who had been invited not for aesthetics, but for closure. I stood in the center of the living room once more, surrounded by the walls we had rebuilt, and the truth I had set free. I raised my glass one last time. To new beginnings, I said, to no one and to everyone. Then I set it down, turned off the music, and stepped into the next part of my life. Quietly, on my own terms, and with nothing left to hide. The morning after, I woke to silence. Not the awkward kind that fills a house after a fight, but a deeper, emptier kind. The kind that follows something final. Ethan wasn't there. He'd left sometime in the night, or maybe just vanished the moment the mask cracked. I made myself coffee. Same kitchen, same cup. But everything felt different, like the house had exhaled. The walls, now scrubbed of lies, didn't echo with his voice anymore. It was mine I heard now, clearer, steadier, and I liked the sound of it. He called, of course, several times, left voicemails, long ones, sad ones, angry ones. But I didn't listen. Not because I hated him. Hate takes too much energy. I was just done. Done with the spin, the charm, the illusion. I let the phone ring while I boxed up his things. I kept only what belonged to me, what was mine before him, and what I'd built in spite of him. The rest? I donated. A woman from a local shelter came by for the bags, and I told her honestly, there's nothing broken in there, just Things I don't need anymore. By the end of that week, I had met with the realtor, signed the paperwork, and finalized the transfer. He didn't even contest it. Maybe he was ashamed. Maybe he knew I had planned every inch of this with precision. I had moved everything, title, utilities, insurance, into my name weeks before the party. It wasn't petty. It was survival. It was claiming something back from the ashes. The house wasn't mine forever. It didn't need to be. It just needed to be the last place I let someone bury me beneath their lies. And now, it was ready to be passed on. Clean. I found an apartment on the other side of the city, modern, minimal, full of light. The kind of space where nothing creaked, nothing whispered. It didn't have history, and that was the point. I didn't want echoes. I wanted clarity. I signed the lease without hesitation, packed what little I truly cared about, and drove there with the windows down. It felt like shedding an old skin, one I'd worn for far too long. When I walked in for the first time, keys still warm in my palm, I didn't cry. I just stood in the center of the room and breathed. There were no ghosts here. No letters hidden behind drywall, no memories painted into corners, just a blank canvas. And this time, I'd choose the colors myself. I picked white curtains, soft rugs, a simple teak table by the window. Every piece I placed had intention, not to impress anyone, not to perform, just to belong, to reflect a version of me I hadn't seen in years, one that didn't shrink, one that didn't wait to be chosen or rescued or noticed. This home didn't just belong to me, it mirrored me. Ethan sent one last email, a long one. He apologized, tried to explain, claimed he never stopped loving me, as if love were a thing you could tuck behind a wall and forget. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The silence between us now wasn't empty. It was earned. It was full of everything I had reclaimed. Every morning in that new space felt lighter, brighter. Like each drawer, each room was a soft promise. No more secrets. No more hiding. Just sunlight. And the sound of my own footsteps, finally going in the direction I chose. On the final day of closing, I returned to the house one last time. It was empty now, stripped of furniture, noise, and shadows. I walked through each room slowly, brushing my fingertips along freshly painted walls, not with sadness, but with a strange sense of gratitude. This place had tested me, betrayed me, but it had also revealed me to myself. I had stood here and cracked open the silence. I had reclaimed my voice. And now I was ready to leave without looking back. I met the contractor outside. He was leaning against his truck, sun on his face, hands tucked into his worn jeans. I handed him the final check with a small smile. "Thank you," I said. He didn't ask for what. Maybe he already knew. He nodded once respectfully, like someone who understood that not all blueprints come on paper. Some are drawn in quiet strength, long nights, and the courage to let go. He tipped his cap and drove off. And just like that chapter closed with a soft click of a car door. When I got back to the apartment, I left the key from the old house on the counter. Just a piece of metal now, no longer a symbol. I poured myself a glass of wine, barefoot, sun slipping across the floor. I took a sip and smiled. Not because I'd won. This wasn't a victory. It was a resurrection. I stood in a space with no hidden compartments, no folded lies, no dusty evidence, just clean walls, and me, whole, awake. And finally free,